Hello again, this is Professor Lucien, and this is Lecture 15 for Safety 380, Introduction to Occupational Safety and Health. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about what is a safety program, but probably even more interesting is to point out that this is the halfway point of the semester. So I'm going to be assigning the semester project. I'll talk about that in a moment. I'm going to review Module 3 because we're wrapping up Module 3. There are 5 modules total, but we're kind of just in that transition point, and the narrative of the class is going to change. The first module was just getting familiar with the safety profession. Module 2 was OSHA. Module 3, which we're just wrapping up and I'll talk about in a moment, was more getting into the practice, the actual things we do, and now we're going to get into different types of different classifications of hazards, and we're going to talk about those in depth. So I'm going to get to those two things, and then I'll talk about a safety program because I've built many of them. And this lecture is going to be a little bit longer, and I really could have gotten carried away. I almost did about sharing some of my work, but what I decided is I'm going to give you the foundation of the concepts, more of what are we really trying to do when we are attempting to build and manage a safety program. And then in modules 4 and 5, when I talk about the different classifications of safety hazards and health hazards, I will then bring portions of my consulting reports and the programs I've written to you as demonstration. So that's what I decided to do. For this lecture, please read Chapter 6 in Administration and Programs textbook. We're going to be flipping to the other one, don't worry. So you had to get to, the other one's coming. I also posted some additional OSHA PDFs and some web links to look at. As always, review the study sheet for the quiz. And I'm going to ask you in this lecture to please check out the additional tab between weeks, between weeks 9 and 10 on the Canvas site as far as what is going to be asked of you for the semester project. So here, this is from the syllabus. So in Lecture 10, that was the end of Module 2. The whole week was spent on being able to find things on the OSHA website, 1, but 2, probably even more importantly, is to properly search, reference, and get answers to questions based on OSHA standards. The week after that, we got into OSHA record keeping, review of labor statistics. I know last week I got a little bit overzealous with the workers' compensation, but that's a real exciting topic to me. That's kind of something near and dear. That's why I went so far in depth. I hope you guys still enjoyed it, though, guys and gals. Then we got into hazard inspection identification techniques. Now we're going to talk about programs. And then the other lecture is hierarchy of controls and safety training. And then you see there at the bottom, at least for this week, this is where I'm assigning the semester project. It's not due until the beginning of May. It's right before, it's basically the end of week 15. That's when we kind of wrap everything up, and then you guys will just have your exams. So what's interesting is as we move forward now, it's the topics now that you see. Basically, you're going to be applying what we covered here in lectures 10 through 16 into your semester project. You have 2 options. And I had to make it 2 options because it used to be I wanted everybody to play the OSHA Hazard Identification Training modules. It's on the OSHA website. We used it for years, and it is fun. It's actually my most viewed video on YouTube. Out of all the ones I've posted, it's got over 1,200 views, which blows my mind. Somebody else is using it somewhere. I don't know who, though. But it is built on Flash software, and a lot of modern computer operating systems don't recognize Flash anymore. So you almost have to have an older computer. I can still play it on mine, but I'm also not operating on Windows 10 yet. And so you may have to use an older computer in order to download and use it. And you should maybe try to do that if you're interested, because it is actually fun. It's a fun. There's a hazard identification, almost like a training module. where you go through and it kind of teaches you to look at things. And then there are 3 scenarios you work through. And then, so on the screen here, I've got a picture of the results from one of them. I'm trying to see which one it is. I can't tell. But it lets you know what the safety climate was based on talking to workers and responding to their complaints, that you were able to, prevent accidents. You're able to save the company money. And so I think it's really fun. And once you get a hold of what you're trying to do, it's not a perfect mimic of what it's like to practice, but it's kind of fun. I think it's cool. But if you can't make it work, you can't do it. So the second option is to select a topic from lecture 17 through 24, which I have on the screen here. Over the next 4 weeks, not this week, but following, we'll talk about ergonomics, which is overexertion hazards, slip, trip, falls, walking and working surfaces, struck by, caught in hazards and machine hazards, electrical, fire hazards, flammable liquid hazards, and then we'll get into the health standards, industrial hygiene, respiratory protection, hearing conservation, and finally behavioral-based safety. Kind of round things up. There's spring break, and then there's 1 week in which I'm just going to kind of give an overall course review and discuss kind of what's coming down the pipe for safety, just kind of give you some insight into what I'm doing and seeing. So I would like to approve whatever topic you choose. I would like to approve it by the end of week 10. So think about it this week. If you can give the hazard identification training module a try, if you can't get it to work, then you just have to pick one of these topics. And you're going to be basically, I have it right here on the screen, is you're going to talk about the statistics. That's why we covered BLS, incidence rates, and work comp. You're going to go into the OSHA standards, which is why we covered that in lecture 10. You're going to, methods to assess the workplace. We covered that last week. And then practical solutions. So that's something that will actually be in the lectures coming up. And then I want you to kind of explain your experience as well. Both of them have an experiential end part of the report, and you'll see that all in the assignment. So it's a way for me to assess that you understand the application of the concepts from the class. It's meant to be fun. So there's a lot of writing on all these slides, and I apologize. I should have taken off some of this, but you can also look at this and see what's important, because I went through and made the font yellow what I really want to focus on. So what is the safety and health program? Well, I've got right there at the top, I've got the general duty clause, the 5A1 from the OSHA Act, provide a place of employment free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause harm. That's what our objective is. And what can cause harm? Well, I've got a short list here. I mean, the hazards and behaviors are always top of the list, but you should also realize that poor communication, incongruent safe and work expectations, poor safety culture, all these things can contribute to how someone may experience an injury, illness, or death in the workplace. The written safety program, which is when you say program, that's what people tend to think, and that's why I wanted to start there. Although it begins with, it's built on management's policies, goals, and expectations, the safety program is really what you see out on the floor. The safety professionals' continuous assessment of the work environment, and they should be using a wide variety of assessment techniques. And when they identify something and they understand what it is, and they try to mitigate it to protect workers, that then becomes part of the safety program, unless you can eliminate it. If you can eliminate a hazard, it doesn't have to be part of the safety program anymore, which is, I think, a motivation and we'll be talking about the hazard control hierarchy in the next lecture, that the ultimate goal is to eliminate all exposures, because if you eliminate the hazard, nobody can get hurt. Then it doesn't have to be in the program. But if you're not willing to go that far, well, then it's just going to make your safety program larger and larger. There's more considerations, more moving parts, and it becomes more expensive. That's the way it works. So, and the program is a living document, and I don't think a lot of people understand that it should be assessed on a regular basis. Minimally, it should be assessed annually. I think even more. There should be parts of it that receive higher attention, a higher priority, because of the frequency of occurrences that are going on in the workplace. Frequency of exposures, the chance of injury is up. Also, the safety professional is in charge of the entirety of the program, and They shouldn't just throw the entire program at workers, at supervisors, and at management. They need to just give them what they need so they understand their duties. What is their roles and responsibilities in it? Because otherwise what you're doing is you're just throwing the jello at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's not being directed, and it's going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to work in certain pieces and parts, but not in totality. I also think the safety program is what you see on the floor. Because you have what's written, you do your assessments, you try to control things. Go back and look and watch. That's where the behavioral-based safety element comes in. What's really going on? Talk to workers. Find out what they're thinking. Is there something that you pursued or recommended that you didn't fully understand what its impact on work would be? And then finally, safety is a continuous improvement exercise, which means there's always probably something you could improve or tweak. And you have turnover of workers. So different personalities, different knowledge bases. There are production goals that change. There are products that change. There's always change in the work environment. And we seems like in safety, we're always playing catch up. Here are the 7 practices for an effective safety program, or the core elements. And I'm going to talk about management, leadership, and worker participation in a moment. Hazard identification and assessment, hazard prevention and control. Those are fundamental to this practice. That's what I'm preparing my students for, to be able to be effective at identification, assessment, and coming up with prevention and controls. The education and training is sort of supplemental to the prevention and control. It also is an element of educating management on what they need to do. You educating yourself as a safety professional based on what the workers and supervisors are seeing and experiencing. The evaluation and continuous improvement comes down to measures, and we're going to talk about measures in a little bit. And although OSHA, their 7th element is communication and coordination for host, employers, contractors, and staffing agencies. Now that is important, but what I think a company can save the most money on is effective or active incident investigation and medical case management. This is a document that I'm providing to you and a link that I'll be providing for you. I think for the beginner, looking at this is like, okay, that looks good. What does it mean? Well, I'm going to get into that now. So the recommended practices by OSHA, they have 10 easy things, quote unquote, 10 easy things to get your program started, engage workers. As I read these, this really doesn't tell me what to do. Oh, how are you going to get out of debt? Save money. What? Thanks. I want to lose weight. Stop eating so much. It's like, that doesn't help me. It doesn't lead me to what I really need to do. So these are kind of like broad ideas, but what's the application? I don't know. And then there's also other tools out there that this stuff is built on. Going all the way back to, actually, you could go back even further, because there was a series of reports written by some NIOSH researchers in the late 60s, early 70s. And those became the foundation for what we believe is an effective safety program. They really haven't changed too much since then, but all these other references, and there are new references coming out every year, it seems like. And as we just transition from one presidential administration to a new one, the new one may have different goals, objectives for OSHA. And so OSHA may come out with new standards. Who knows? We'll see. But they've been talking for a long time about implementing an injury and illness prevention program. California has one. Other states do as well. We may have a federal standard for it in the next 4 years. We'll see. The way I like to practice, the way I try to teach my students, is to think of it on more of a, the timeline. That there are things that happened in the past, and we had intent for what people were doing, or we didn't know yet, and so we're still exploring. And the type of measures we collect, how we monitor things, we monitor them today. And we try to make an understanding of, well, this is what we wanted in the past. And this is very much experimental design. This is what we wanted. Did we get what we expected? If we did, okay, so let's keep going. If we didn't, then what are we going to try and change today in order to measure something in the future? So I call it, yesterday, today, tomorrow safety. So consider the past, affect change in the present, and then gain improvement goals for the future. And that is a continuous improvement cycle. How is the safety program built? It starts with assessing. We assess data. We look at the written programs that are currently in place. And that'll come out in all of my consulting reports I share with you. That's something I do right at the beginning. The visual audits or job hazard analyses, all these things need to be done. But maybe I should have put at the top there, talk to workers. Got to find out what they think. What sort of priorities have been impressed upon them? What maybe unwritten expectations do they perceive from management? Because that tells a lot. Step 2 is one, you should prioritize. You should try to follow the hierarchy of controls. That's next lecture. Research solutions, look at it from a cost-benefit perspective, and then educate management. Try to persuade them. 3 is to try to get more people discussing topics, getting more input. That's where you develop sort of a change plan. Everything should be documented so that there should be a connecting of the dots. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, safety. And then finally, the performance is assessed. And you just try to keep improving. So this is an organizational safety improvement model that I teach in higher level classes. I decided to bring it here to you. It kind of provides a foundation for the way I practice. And for a lot of people to think, well, let's make objectives. We'll write actual goals, and then workers and supervisors will follow it. But the problem is the communication lines are not always clear. And so worker engagement is earned through trust and building. So that's where we start. So day 1 on the job, I'm out there talking to workers and supervisors, and I'm getting to know them. I'm getting to know their concerns. I'm asking them to explain to me how they do their job and whether they elicit satisfaction from it. Who do they look to as, someone to solve problems? All these things give you really good insight. And by showing the caring while you're developing those relationships, reciprocity theory would indicate that they would then want to help you. And that's what the next step is. And that is to learn about safety issues and stuff from them. I don't start with that question. I start with getting to know who they are and more about their work. Also, you have to speak to supervisors and speak to workers and supervisors separately. They will have a different perspective on how things are done out on the floor. And it's good to talk to workers first. Supervisors may actually have answers already in mind, but I want to find out what the workers think first. I also think that the focus should be on the work itself. I have here on one of the bullets, safety is an attribute of work. That's one of my foundational principles for how I practice. Maybe that's the industrial engineer in me, but a worker's primary objective is to get a job done. The safety professional shouldn't come and just kind of tack on more work to be safe. It should be part of the work itself. And if safety inhibits or slows down their prime objective, getting the job done, well, then they're not going to be safe because they're going to choose work over safety. Also, that the training needs to be simple and specific and applied. So bringing workers into a break room and lecturing at them for 2 hours is not effective. Out on the floor, having a lead worker, and you cooperated with them, demonstrate to the workers what they need to do and to be safe, and how that works out is a better way to do it. Saves everybody time, saves everybody boredom and anguish, and you're more likely to get a better outcome. We take what we learn from the workers and our assessments and the cost effectiveness of what we're going to recommend for solutions, and we educate management. They need to understand their role. They may think, well, if I just make rules, the workers will figure it out. If you ever hear anybody say safety is common sense, they're wrong. It's not. People behave based on common sense. So if somebody's getting hurt, that was their common sense. You misrepresented. The goals, the expectations. I had brought this up before when I talk to workers. What management puts out there for a goal affects what workers think. So if workers don't think safety is important, it's because of the way management wrote their policies or presented their goals. So management needs to understand that, and you should be able to help them write it. So for the most part, what we're going to be doing as safety professionals is we persuade management on the right things to do and why. try to link it to production or money. And so what we're really doing is educating management on their role and how safety is really working out on the floor. With the value of safety, so dollars is the easiest, of course. But then there's ethical, moral reasons, there's the company brand, and there's a lot of other things that if you look at productivity, quality, communication, morale, job satisfaction, blah, 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 lots of stuff. There are a lot of ways to show how the pursuit of understanding what to do so that a worker can get their job done safely and elicit satisfaction from it, that the company does better. And we just have to be really creative on how we go out there and develop that picture and present it to management. So the written program is meant to, I put on here, keep it simple. And a lot of people follow these standards too close. I don't agree with that. I think the presentation of the program should align more with the assessment, the understanding of its prevalence and occurrence and cost involved, how the solutions were developed, and how those solutions look implemented. And what do workers need to know about that? What do supervisors need to know about that? What does management need to know about that? I think that's a better format than seeing it from the way the standards are written. The standards can be attained, compliance with the OSHA standards can be obtained through this methodology I just talked about. Some people just get so caught up in typing up these huge binders and having a wall of binders that they're really missing the point of what they're attempting to do. And that is to understand what can cause harm, coming up with effective solutions so that the worker can get their job done, hopefully safely, and hopefully elicit some satisfaction from it, and that we're continuously trying to understand it. I don't like the term safety culture. I like the term learning culture. Safety culture, I think in some instances, causes workers to be afraid if something goes wrong, or to want to hide when they made a mistake and either they got hurt or somebody else got hurt, and not want to report it, or not want to report everything they know about it. A learning culture, I don't want to blame. I want to find out what we can do to improve things. And I think if you can adopt that mindset and always be aware of it and be pursuing it, you're in a better position to achieve excellent safety program performance versus if you just state 0 injuries. I don't think that helps anybody. You should also be prepared for accidents because they're probably going to happen. Excuse me, I just hiccuped. Should not blame the worker. Because do workers get injured on purpose? The answer is no. It may appear to the bystander that they committed an act, a behavior, or committed to a decision that resulted in them getting hurt, and you may think, oh, they probably did that on purpose. They full well knew they could have gotten hurt, because me, having 20/20 hindsight, can see what I would do. That's a human frailty. It's called attribution error. We tend to blame the person most proximal to the accident, versus when we're hurt, when we're in the accident, we can tend to identify external factors that contributed to it. So be careful. When I worked at the state, I had to train all the supervisors to use a technique which withheld blame, to try to find something else. Sure, there may be some worker contribution, but let's not start there. Okay. So with continuous improvement, I probably shouldn't have kept this on. There are leading and lagging indicators. Primarily, like when I talked about incidence rates, those are lagging indicators. It's just a measure of what happened in the past. But there's a movement right now in safety, and I'll talk about it in the final week. It's called Safety 2.0. Some people call it safety differently. One increasing in popularity is human and organizational performance, or HOP. And I'll talk about that later, where we're looking for more positive attributes in the work environment and training those and monitoring those and recognizing those versus just focusing on minimizing the negative. You're trying to enhance or increase the positives. I like that approach. But there are some people out there, some groups, schools of thought that don't fully understand or comprehend what that means. This is mine. I created this. It's my safety program maturity. So when somebody asks me a safety question, I can usually get a basic judgment on what is the maturity of their safety program. So play with me or just I don't forget what the word I was going to say. Infant, toddler, you're just training and it's not even real training. Here, read a brochure. Don't get hurt. Use common sense. That's a toddler infant. They're going to get hurt. Preteen, mostly focused on OSHA compliance, reactive because of OSHA fear. So I've actually had clients that way. And what I try to do is get them at least to the young adult. Teenager, they think they know everything, right? They're mostly OSHA focused. They're actually calculating incidence rates. They're looking at work comp maybe, or at least talking about it. But the focus is still compliance. And they're starting to use the term safety culture, which, again, I told you what I felt about that. This is really in the middle here from what I've been hearing, what I see. So the young adult is looking at OSHA records, calculating incidence rates, trending their work comp data. That's a big step forward. They're considering doing observations such as behavioral-based safety. They may actually be measuring and analyzing near misses, and they may actually be developing a culture that recognizes safety as an importance, so that workers are maybe a little more open about what they're seeing, less fear. Adult, we're starting to get into like high performers here. Considers leading and lagging metrics together, compares them. They do root cause analyses, which is way better than everything else. I talked about that a few lectures ago. And doing risk assessments. Because what this is doing is giving a more objective assessment of what needs to be done, what is being done. And in order for continuous improvement to be truly effective, it needs to be data-driven. Then finally, we've got the world class, which I labeled as the Jedi. That is taking a systems approach, no blame, innovative and resilience, and quality management like metrics. I don't know. I think that's cool. Works for me. I presented at conferences. So safety programs are more than binders. I just want to make sure that gets across, because one time when I was, I may have already told you this, but I'll say it again because it impacted me quite a bit, that I was on an OSHA inspection. And during the opening conference, when I was asking to look at their programs, the safety person was all proud, and he took the binder off the shelf, took the plastic wrap off of it in which he had purchased it, and handed it to me. It's not a program. You bought a reference point, but it's not a program. There's nothing practical or applied to your work environment. You can't just take a safety program and just stick it in this other company. It doesn't work that way at all. You have to assess what's there. That's how a safety program is built over time, over continuous improvement, iterative improvements. Oh, wow, I can't believe I got through this. This was a long one, though. Thank you for sticking with me, by the way. I want you to take a look at the semester assignment, the actual written document that describes it, because it would be great if everybody in the next week could find like an older computer and try to watch the video and try to download and play the OSHA thing. Because if you can find a system that supports it, it's fun. It really is a fun game, and I think the semester project gets a lot easier to do. If you are unable to find an older system or a system that runs on an older operating system, and you can't get the OSHA program to work because again it's on Flash, or if there's just a particular topic that you're really interested in, because we really haven't gotten into them yet, you can look ahead if you want. I would like you to reach out to me. I think what I'll do is probably build it into the weekly reflection. Just to, what are you thinking? What have you tried? Just to see where everybody is. I know there's going to be some people who put it off until right before it's due. Hey, that's human nature, right? But if we can get a majority of the class to decide what they want to do, that would be beneficial to me. Also, I just want you to know about what a safety program is built through assessment and improvement. And the more experience you gain, the more trust you gain from the workers and the supervisors, therefore the more input they have, the better you can educate and persuade management. That cycle, that's how you build an effective safety program. You come up with better measures. You're more effective at analyzing and tracking and using it to guide tomorrow's safety. And that the safety program is continuously improving, continuously changing. It's a living document. Cool. So what I want you to do is read chapter 6. I've got a few things for you to look at. And like always, review the study sheet in prep for the quiz.